Listen now to the book, One Night with the Hybrid King, written by the author Anya Curves. If you want to buy the ebook, link in the description. Like and share. Chapter 21 Aria. The unexpected softness of the kiss contrasts with the intensity of the attraction it awakened in me. My mind screams in protest, reminding me of his position, his marriage, the betrayal that this act represents. But these thoughts are smothered by the overwhelming force of desire consuming my body. Yet, even knowing that I should pull away, I cannot resist his touch. It's as if my will is overpowered by the magnetism of the moment. The taste of his lips, the softness with which they press against mine, everything is as intoxicating as I remember. Without realizing it, I part my lips, granting him permission to move forward, to let his tongue invade me, exploring my depths with an intimacy he has somehow reignited within me. My body is beyond my control, acting of its own accord, as though driven by muscle memory. My hands, which should be pushing him away, instead move to his neck, running my fingers along the nape, feeling the silky texture of his light strands. The warmth of his body radiates into mine, and the touch of his skin against me sends a shiver down my spine. Caelum's hands, firm and determined, slide to my waist, where he holds me with a palpable, almost possessive desire. His grip, strong and secure, pulls me even closer, and I find myself lost in the intensity of his touch. His lips, once gentle, now become ravenous. And I, far from restraining myself, respond with equal fervor, our desires colliding like waves in a storm. This moment brings back memories of that hazy night 5 years ago, a night of passion that served as a brief respite from the pain I carried. And now, on Caelum's lips, in the way he leads me to a wall and presses his body against mine, I feel an echo of that night, a memory that has never ceased to haunt me. I should stop, should regain control, but I feel powerless against what I feel for Caelum. It's an attraction so steadfast, so intense, that it completely overwhelms me, making every fiber of my being cry out for him. Our lips don't part, rather, they fuse in a kiss that only grows in intensity and urgency. Caelum's hand, deft and full of intent, slips beneath my shirt, and the direct touch of his skin against mine is like an electric shock. A shiver courses through my entire body, a wave of pleasure that makes me arch into him, as if every cell of mine is alive with the desire he stirs within me. The world around us seems to dissolve, silenced by the muffled sound of our ragged breaths and the subtle noises of our bodies in motion. We are alone in our bubble of passion, isolated from everything and everyone, until suddenly, a voice intrudes upon the office along with the sound of the door opening. "Your Majesty, I have the reports on." The male voice echoes in the room, breaking the carnal spell we had been submerged in. The intrusive sound is like a bucket of cold water, snapping me back to the reality I so desperately wanted to forget. "Forgive me." The voice reminds me of Alexander, and I feel my heart freeze within my chest. The interruption is abrupt and devastating. In that same instant, a wave of guilt and panic overwhelms me, like a sudden ice engulfing my heart, crushing the passion that had so recently consumed me. When I finally pull myself away from Caelum's kiss, it's as if the spell is broken, and the door closing behind the intruder serves as a painful reminder of where we are and who he is. I step back, regaining awareness of what we've just done, feeling a wave of conflicting emotions flood my being. Anger, guilt, desire, all blend into a storm within me. In a moment of pure euphoria mixed with fury, I raise my hand and bring it down hard against Caelum's face, the slap echoing through the room. He allows the blow, doesn't dodge, which leaves me even more impressed and confused. The fact that he doesn't react with anger, that he doesn't try to justify his actions or defend himself, only fuels my frustration. I step back from him, breathless, my fists clenched at my sides as I struggle to regain control over my emotions. "You're married," I finally blurt out, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "Just because you're king, that doesn't give you the right to do what you did. What do you think I am? Some whore you can take for yourself just because you want to." The words come out sharp, carrying a pain I didn't want to admit. Caelum takes a few steps back, respecting the distance I demand, but still holding that commanding presence every king possesses. He rubs his face where I struck him, and I expect to see anger, indignation, any sign that he's been hurt by my reaction. But instead, he smiles. A mischievous, amused smile which only serves to increase my fury and my confusion. How can he smile like that, after what we just did? "No, I definitely don't think of you as a whore, Aria," Caelum replies, his voice still breathless, but with a note of exhilaration that unsettles me. I think your kiss is still as fiery as it was 5 years ago. The malice in his voice is unmistakable, but there's also a tone of satisfaction, as if he's just confirmed something he's always suspected. I thought back then it was the effect of the alcohol, but I realize now it isn't, he finishes, the joy in his voice painfully contrasting with the turmoil in my chest. Caelum's words hit me hard, bringing back the hazy memories of that night filled with drunkenness and a broken heart. Confusion takes hold of me as reality intertwines with memories, creating a whirlwind that threatens to swallow me whole. I stammer in shock. Caelum frowns, visibly confused by my reaction, but there's a glint of something more in his eyes. Perhaps curiosity, perhaps anticipation. He extends his arms in a theatrical gesture, as if presenting himself to an invisible audience, before giving an exaggerated bow in my direction. Each of his movements is loaded with unshakable confidence, a sense of power he wears like a second skin. The Greek god at your service, princess, he announces, humor lacing his voice. The mischievous and amused smile remains on his face, and I find myself frozen in place. The world seems to close in around me, leaving me paralyzed, unable to react. I slept with King Caelum Frost, the hybrid king of our nation. My children may indeed be the king's bastards. This thought creeps into my mind, bringing with it a wave of fear and dread that makes me feel as though the ground beneath my feet is dissolving. Caelum watches me, his eyes curious and piercing, as if he's trying to decipher every thought crossing my mind. I feel the panic rise in my throat, an urgent need to escape this place, this truth that threatens to consume everything I've built to protect myself and my children. Without thinking, my legs start moving, carrying me out of the office in hurried, almost desperate steps. Each step is an attempt to distance myself from the peak of desire I allowed to envelop me, an attempt to erase the memory of that night that should have remained buried. But the truth is, the pain from that night is still very much alive in me. The separation that tore my heart apart still haunts me at every moment. Caelum's presence, the warmth of his body, the magnetism he exudes, all of it serves only to reopen wounds I fought so hard to heal. And now, the voice that erupted in the office, the voice that sounded so similar to Alexander's, is a cruel reminder of everything I lost and all that I will never be able to regain. I run, desperately wanting to leave it all behind, wanting to forget the feeling of Caelum's lips on mine, the warmth of his touch, the overwhelming desire he awakened within me. I don't want to relive that night. I don't want to reopen the scars it left. Its weight is unbearable, a painful memory that threatens to drown me. The night I spent with Caelum was a monumental mistake, a mistake that now haunts me with the devastating possibility that my children are the heirs of a king. And as I run through the corridors, my heart pounding frantically in my chest, a single certainty crystallizes in my mind. King Caelum Frost should never have entered my life, and now that he has, I will never be the same again. Chapter 22, Aria. When I finally stop running, I'm in the locker room corridor, my breath coming in gasps, each breath a struggle, and my heart hammering in my chest, trying to break free. I lean against the cold wall, feeling the rough texture against my skin as I try to catch my breath and regain control over my emotions. The whirlwind of thoughts in my mind is overwhelming, each one more distressing than the last. The thought that Aloan and Thorn might be Caelum's illegitimate children hammers relentlessly in my head, but I fight to push these thoughts away. If I give in to this spiral of fear and anxiety now, I know I won't be able to return to work. With my breathing finally steadied and my determination restored, I push open the locker room door, stepping into an environment that's already familiar to me, but today feels different, heavier, laden with tension. The locker room is emptier than before, which should bring me some relief, but the unwelcome presence of Lily, with her gaze always full of contempt, destroys any sense of comfort I might have had. Tonight's event is a masquerade. The clients requested that everyone, including the staff, wear masks, my manager explains quickly, handing me a rather beautiful red lace mask. Thank you, I'll get ready now, I reply, trying to keep my voice steady, even though inside, I'm a chaotic mess of emotions. With the mask in hand and my uniform draped over my arm, I walk through the locker room toward the restroom, trying to ignore the curious glances that follow me. But Lily, always sharp and venomous, doesn't miss the chance to throw her malicious words in my direction. Barely got here, and you've already spread your legs for the new boss. Once a whore, always a whore. Let's just hope she doesn't kill this one too when he refuses to promote her. Lily's voice drips with venom, each word carefully chosen to wound me. The cruelty in her tone is so palpable that I can almost taste its bitterness in my mouth. It seems that Lily, like everyone else, doesn't yet know that the new owner of the company is none other than King Caelum himself. If she knew, I'm sure she'd think twice before accusing me of something so scandalous. But even without this knowledge, Lily's accusations are baseless, and I feel my blood boiling inside me, each of her words feeding the fury growing within me. I spin around to face her, my steps quick and determined, as though a dormant dragon has finally awakened inside me, flames blazing in my veins. The anger I feel is overwhelming, and every fiber of my being demands a response. Listen here, you miserable hag. I've had enough, got it? You're a bitter, envious cow. If I slept with someone, whether he's the boss or not, I'd still be better off than you, Lily. I have the attention of the very men you crave, but can't get. You're nothing but a vile woman no man wants. The words leave my mouth with raw fury, each syllable laden with venom spreading through the room like a storm. The silence that follows is deafening. The few employees still in the locker room are left gaping, eyes wide with surprise and shock. Lily, her face twisted in rage and humiliation, looks around as if seeking support, but all she finds are stunned stares. The fury in her eyes grows and she steps toward me, hand raised, ready to strike. Lily stands frozen in shock at my reaction, at the force with which I slapped her. I immediately release her wrist, and Lily's eyes start to fill with tears as she dashes out of the locker room. No one says a word or makes a move, but I am faster. My hand moves before she has a chance to strike me, gripping her wrist firmly. The strength of my reaction seems to catch her off guard, her eyes widening further in shock. With my other hand, I slap her, the sound of the impact echoing through the locker room like thunder. Lily's expression turns blank, surprise and shock overtaking her features, while tears begin to well up in her eyes. I let go of her wrist, feeling the tension in my muscles ease slightly, as I watch Lily pull away, her tears now freely streaming down her face. She runs out of the locker room, unable to bear the humiliation, leaving behind a silence thick with tension. No one speaks, no one moves. Everyone appears petrified, as if what they just witnessed was surreal, beyond reality. I take a deep breath, trying to calm the turmoil within me, and adjust my stance, determined not to let this confrontation unnerve me more than it already has. I pick up my uniform and mask, which had fallen to the floor during the scuffle, and head towards the restroom, each step firm and resolute, as though reclaiming the control I almost lost. The weight of what happened still hangs in the air, but I push it to the back of my mind. I have a job to do, and I won't let Lily or anyone else keep me from doing my duty. The masquerade offers a brief but welcome refuge of comfort, a small pause in the turbulence of recent days. As I move around the hall, serving guests with the practiced grace I've developed over the years, I feel a sense of familiarity I haven't felt in a long time. For the first time in weeks, a glimmer of contentment rises within my chest. The hall is bathed in a soft, dim glow, low lighting that lends an air of mystery and intrigue to the surroundings. Behind my own mask, I feel strangely free, as if that small piece of red lace grants me temporary invisibility, a chance to be just another servant, indistinguishable amidst the crowd of masked nobles. The guests are evidently nobles, easily identifiable by their luxurious attire and the jewels glimmering in the gentle light. The fine fabrics, rich with intricate details, the silks, brocades, and lace, each piece chosen with utmost care, speak of a life of opulence and privilege. The masks covering their faces are as varied as the stars in the sky, some adorned with exuberant feathers, others encrusted with gemstones, each a symbol of status and wealth. As I observe these details, I find myself imagining what life must be like among the upper class, among dukes, kings, and marquises. What do these people think, feel? Is their life truly as glamorous and perfect as their clothes and jewels suggest? Or do they too, behind their masks, carry secrets and sorrows as deep as mine? Few humans are fortunate enough, or perhaps burdened, to hold noble titles. Most of those here are lycans, powerful creatures who have always ruled the social structure of our kingdom. Years ago, the enchantresses were also part of the nobility, a delicate balance between races that, in some way, maintain the peace. But times have changed. Since King Caelum began facing the constant attacks from the rebel lycans, the atmosphere of tension and uncertainty has only grown. The measures he took to protect the kingdom were drastic and often ruthless. Among them was the expulsion of the enchantresses to Grimroot Forest, something that, I must admit, I found unjust. Caelum is a hybrid king, half lycan, half enchantress. He is part of both peoples, yet seems to favor only one. This shift makes me reflect on the future of humans in our kingdom. If the enchantresses, with all their power and influence, were relegated to the fringes of the realm, what will become of us humans, whose strength is so inferior in comparison? The thought is unsettling, sending a chill down my spine, a sensation of vulnerability that makes me shiver inwardly.
Chapter 23, Caelum. Aria bursts out of the office with a shock and anger that take me by surprise. Her every movement seems like an instinctive reaction, like a cornered animal. Could she truly not remember me? Could my cloaking spell from 5 years ago, coupled with the drunken haze of that nebulous night, really have erased me from her mind? The thought chases my memories, unearthing doubts I hadn't realized were buried. The gentle, yet intricate touch of the spell should have erased the specific memory, but not to the point of making me a complete stranger to her. Yet the empty look and confusion in her eyes upon seeing me, as if I were just another shadow in her past, leave me disoriented. If that's the case, then fate is nothing more than a cruel jester, laughing at me while orchestrating our reunion at my own wedding anniversary celebration 5 years later. I stare at the office door, still slightly swaying from Aria's abrupt exit, and notice the presence of my right-hand man, Asher, standing in the hallway a few meters away. A shadow of doubt crosses his face as he observes the scene. Aria rushed past so quickly that she likely didn't even notice him. Asher, always so perceptive and vigilant, has his brow furrowed, a line of concern evident on his expression. He throws a puzzled look in my direction, as if trying to piece together what just transpired. I know it was his voice when the door opened. Asher is my right hand, confidant, and best friend. I understand that, for him, witnessing me kissing a woman who wasn't my mate, Seraphina, could feel strange. "Come in, friend," I say, my voice attempting to hold steady as I motion for him to approach. Asher straightens, his every move displaying the discipline he's acquired over the years by my side, and steps into the office. The sound of his boots against the floor softly echoes through the room, bringing a strange sense of normalcy to the chaos still hanging in the air after Aria's departure. I return to my seat in the armchair opposite the desk, trying to gather my thoughts, while Asher hands me a yellow envelope. "Here it is, Caelum. The autopsy results for the previous owner arrived today," Asher announces, his voice as firm as ever, as I open the document and spread the papers across the desk. My eyes scan the information quickly as he begins to confirm the details aloud, though my mind drifts between the autopsy report and the image of Aria, how she seemed so frightened. "As you can see, the cause of death was not the slit throat, but rather poisoning," Asher states, his rough voice delivering the seriousness of his words and cutting through my reverie. I analyze the forensic data on examining the body. Indeed, the report notes traces of poison in the victim's system, a detail that changes the entire dynamic of what we believed had occurred. "What concerns me, Caelum, is the type of poison," Asher says with a more somber tone, and I nod, feeling a chill creep up my spine. "It's not only the poison that worries me, but the implications of its presence. Yes, it says here the poison identified was night ichor. Is that correct?" I ask, attempting to keep my voice steady, though the concern is clear. "Exactly, Majesty. I personally had them double-check, and the result was this poison," Asher affirms, his tone leaving no room for doubt. He is as certain as I am confused. The night ichor is a rare poison, and its presence here, in this case, raises more questions than it answers. "Asher, the night ichor poison is extremely rare. It's not possible that Aria had access to it," I comment, thoughtful, disbelief coloring every word. "Aria, even with her beauty that could open impossible doors, still wouldn't have the means to obtain something so rare, at least not on her own." "I agree, sire. Here in our kingdom, even with the enchantress living and practicing magic only in Grimroot Forest, the poison cannot be cultivated so easily. I suggest, Majesty, that you check the castle's secret vaults," Asher reports. "In the royal secret vaults, few people have the combination to access them. There are powerful magical weapons inside, as well as rare poisons like night ichor. Do you think Aria could have gained access to the secret vaults?" I ask incredulously, my voice low, almost a whisper, as if speaking it aloud might somehow make this possibility more real. Asher shrugs before answering. You yourself mentioned she was at the party the night the rebel attack occurred. Perhaps with that distraction, she managed to get access, Asher responds, his theory holding some sense. But still, the idea seems absurd. Aria, even at her best, wouldn't have had the time or means to bypass the castle's security and break into the vaults, even if she used the attack as a means to do so. The time was very tight to reach the vaults, you know. The vaults are far from the hall where the party took place. And how would she have bypassed the security and the combinations? I debate with Asher, logic pulling me back to reality. It doesn't make sense. Something doesn't fit, as if we're missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. Maybe with the help of the wolf-spawn renegades, sire. Anything is possible. The alliance between humans and the rebels, Asher suggests, leaving the sentence hanging, unfinished but full of implications. I ponder Asher's suggestions, trying to connect the dots that seem to be growing more distant from one another. What doesn't make sense is, why enter the kingdom's secret vaults, steal the poison, and kill the chief? What would the plan be? To poison him and also slit his throat after he had already passed? I question with doubt in my voice, feeling like we are only scratching the surface of something much larger and more dangerous. She may have been framed, but by whom and for what reason? I gather the papers Asher handed me and place them back into the envelope. Asher, keep investigating these points more thoroughly, please. I feel like there's a trail of breadcrumbs in this case that could lead us to the leader of the wolf-spawn renegades. We just can't see them yet. I declare, my voice firm, but inside, I feel like I'm in the midst of a storm, trying to find solid ground. Yes, Majesty. Asher replies with a respectful nod before heading out of my office, leaving me alone with my thoughts.
Chapter 24, Seraphina. The woman's compulsive sobbing echoes through the room, each sob grating on my ears and gradually eroding my patience. Irritation boils within me, mingled with a profound disdain for this pathetic creature. How can someone be so weak, so pitiful? I wonder if baby's crying will be as insufferable as the wailing of this stupid human. The living room in the woman's house is a dismal sight. The walls are covered in faded, outdated wallpaper, stained with years of neglect. The acrid smell of cigarette smoke saturates everything, from the closed curtains to the worn fabric of the sofa where she sits, crying uncontrollably. The cheap and poorly maintained furniture gives the space an air of mediocrity, a perfect reflection of the insignificant life this woman leads. If it were up to me, I'd incinerate everything here, including this poor wretch who can't stop crying. You idiot, can't you do anything right? My voice reverberates with restrained fury. The impact of my words makes the woman tremble even more, her sobs intensifying into an irritating cacophony. Stop crying. The command escapes me laced with power, a paralyzing spell woven into my words. She freezes in place, her eyes wide and staring ahead like those of a statue. The terror of being unable to move or scream is evident in her bloodshot eyes, the only part of her body still capable of expressing any emotion. I feel a grim satisfaction at her despair, a small victory over the weakness she represents. I thought you wanted your husband dead, after everything that scoundrel put you through. The betrayals, the gambling, the mounting debts, I remark in a softer tone, though it still carries sharpness. The woman's eyes follow me as I pace in front of her. You wanted a way out of this torment, didn't you, human? And I granted your wish. I gave you the poison, the weapon, and even someone to take the blame, leaving you free with the money from the vault and my generous payment. Isn't that so? With a snap of my fingers, I lift the spell, allowing her to breathe again. She gasps as though she's been drowning, her lungs filling with a desperation that's almost comical. Yes, ma'am, she replies, her voice trembling and laden with fear. I did everything you told me. I put the poison in his coffee, sent the message to the girl, and before she arrived, I slit his throat. I called the police and left everything just as you ordered, she recites, her thin, high-pitched voice grating on me even more. I grab an ugly, cheap vase from the shelf and hurl it against the wall with all my strength. The sound of ceramic shattering fills the air, and the woman cowers further, her eyes wide and her body shaking like a leaf in the wind. My eyes glow with contained power, the spell pulsing beneath my skin, ready to erupt. Then how is it possible that that girl is still free, walking around? She should be in jail. My voice is brimming with impatience, each word a strike of frustration. I can't comprehend how Aria managed to get out of prison. My plan was flawless, every detail meticulously laid out. I combed through the former boss's life. Every betrayal, every debt, every humiliation. Persuading his wife was easy, promising her a new life, free of torment, free of debt, with enough wealth to never work again. All she had to do was frame Aria, and the path would be clear. But now, all of it has gone down the drain, and I am furious. I was informed by the detectives working on the case that someone posted her bail, ma'am. She hasn't been ruled out as a suspect, but they let her out on bail, the woman responds, her voice laced with fear. That's impossible, I retort, incredulity swelling within me like a tidal wave. The bail amount for murder cases is exorbitant, over 100,000. She couldn't possibly have come up with that money so quickly, I say, my mind racing for an explanation. The woman shrugs helplessly, as if the matter were out of her hands. I begin pacing back and forth, rage boiling inside me, my thoughts moving at lightning speed as I try to devise the next step. The muffled sound of the neighbor's television filters into the room, an irritating reminder of the banality of life surrounding me. The murderess watches me, fear etched into every line of her face, reinforcing my conviction that she remains my most useful pawn to eliminate Aria and her children. What will we do, ma'am? Her voice trembles, each word a reflection of the fear consuming her. I take a deep breath, the air filling my lungs like ice, and I lock my gaze onto hers, a stare cold enough to freeze the blood in her veins. I'm going to give you one more chance to fix this, I declare, my voice as frigid as steel, devoid of any hint of compassion. My expression leaves no room for doubt. There is no longer any margin for error. With slow, deliberate movements, I reach into my pocket and pull out a small vial. The glass glints under the dim light of the room, and inside, the dark liquid pulses with a sinister energy, as though eager to fulfill its deadly purpose. The remainder of the nightshade ichor, retrieved from the depths of the castle's secret vaults. I can only hope human law enforcement is foolish enough not to trace the origin of this poison. And even if they do, what difference would it make? There is no connection between me and this act, at least none they could ever prove. To this pathetic creature before me, I am merely an enigmatic enchantress, a benefactor offering her an escape from her torment, her miserable marriage. Use this on Aria, I command, extending the vial to her. Eliminate her and make it look like she took her own life. Leave a letter confessing to your husband's murder. My words are firm, each syllable imbued with unquestionable authority. She takes the vial with trembling hands, her eyes fixed on the venomous liquid as if it were the key to her salvation or damnation. Yes, ma'am, she replies, her voice still trembling with fear, but now tinged with a malice that wasn't there before. But this wasn't part of our original deal. I'll need more money to flee and better plan her death. The cunning in her tone irritates me, and I see greed flickering in her eyes. I shoot her a frosty glare, my patience rapidly wearing thin. This woman's arrogance will be her undoing, I'm certain of it. She's toying with forces far beyond her comprehension, completely unaware of the fate awaiting her. I take a deep breath, reining in the anger threatening to surface, and nod, my expression softening just enough to appear convincing. Fine. Once you confirm Aria's death to me, I'll give you another 15,000, I affirm, each word laden with conviction, masking my true intentions. In reality, as soon as she confirms Aria's death, the same cruel fate will await her. I cannot allow loose ends to remain, nor any trace of my involvement in this plan to surface. She is nothing more than another disposable piece on my chessboard, and once her role is fulfilled, she will join her husband in the grave.
Chapter 25, Aria. At the end of the party, as the music fades into a distant echo and the hall slowly empties, I dedicate myself to guiding the last guests, those most intoxicated, toward the exit. Each of my movements feels almost ritualistic, something I had missed during my time confined indoors, away from work. Beneath the dim light that gives the space an intimate atmosphere, I sense someone watching me. I glance around, searching for the gaze that follows me. Yet, I find nothing but lively guests who insist on remaining on the dance floor, even though the music has long stopped. Still, there was something more, something I couldn't quite identify. Beneath that delicate dimness, the feeling of being watched clung to me, persistent as a shadow at my heels. The hall continued to empty, but the sensation of someone's eyes on me refused to fade. I wondered if King Caelum was among the masked staff, but I dismissed the idea. Why would he need a mask to observe me? As the owner of the company, he could easily watch me through the security cameras. Then an even more unsettling thought struck me. What if it was Alexander? The painful memory of the kiss with the king, interrupted by a voice that seemed to belong to my ex-lover, sent a shiver down my spine. My heart began to race, and a growing anxiety took hold of me. While I tried to focus on the task of gathering scattered chairs, my mind spun into a whirlwind of doubts. My thoughts inevitably drifted to my children, the twins. Each of their features seemed as though they could belong to either me or Alexander, just as much as they could to Caelum. This uncertainty began to gnaw at me, a slow and relentless poison. If I could choose, I would rather my two little angels were Alexander's. A simple lycan, the one I had fallen for without reservations, free from the complications of the nobility that now engulfed my life. Memories of my time with Alexander came flooding back, bringing a painful mix of longing and hurt. Suddenly, a man's voice broke through my reverie, pulling me sharply back to reality. "You must be Miss Aria, am I correct?" The question, coming out of nowhere, startled me, making my heart race even faster. I looked up to face the owner of the voice. Standing before me was a man nearly 6'3", as imposing as a marble statue. His red hair, glowing softly under the light, contrasted with the full beard that framed his face. His piercing blue eyes, which initially regarded me with severity, left an immediate impression. There was something in that gaze, a certain intensity, that made me feel exposed. "Yes, that's me. How can I help you?" I responded, trying to maintain my composure. My voice came out polite, almost automatic, as my mind raced to determine who he might be. Perhaps one of the guests who, despite the well-marked exits, still felt lost. He extended his hand in a cordial gesture. "I'm Asher, the right hand of King Caelum." His words were firm, but there was a hint of embarrassment in his tone. "Well, I'm the one who entered the office, and we didn't have the chance to speak properly," he explained, as though apologizing for an intrusion that, in truth, had been much more than that. If it were possible, my skin would have flushed with embarrassment at that moment. But since that doesn't happen, I feel the heat rise to my eyes, transforming into nervous stammering. "Oh my God, hi. Sorry. What you saw there, well, that's not what I—" My words tumble over themselves, shame dripping from every syllable as I extend my hand to greet him. "No need to apologize, miss," Asher replies, his voice filled with a politeness that only deepens my nervousness. What King Caelum does in private with anyone is entirely his business and no one else's. The neutrality in his tone is almost reassuring, yet at the same time, I feel a pang of dread. Does he see me as just another maid of the king? A gold digger looking for social advancement? "Mr. Asher, I assure you what happened in that office was an accident, nothing more," I reply with a firmness that, deep down, is more to convince myself than to convince him. Asher simply nods, as if already prepared not to prolong the subject. "Can I assist you with something, Mr. Asher?" I ask, desperately trying to steer the conversation toward safer ground. "No, actually, I came to ask if you're all right, Miss Aria." The words leave his mouth softly, but carry a sincerity that catches me off guard. "I'm aware of your situation, and imagine it must not be easy. Is there anything I can do to help?" For a moment, I'm taken aback. I hadn't expected kindness, much less from someone so close to the king. Finally, I pay proper attention to him and notice that the face which once seemed stern now reveals a gentler side. There's something about his presence that makes me feel an odd connection, as if somehow he understands the depth of my despair. A timid, welcoming smile forms on my lips, almost without my realizing it, as I acknowledge his offer of help. "I'm a bit tired, but after so long away from work, I even missed this exhaustion," I reply, returning to my task, trying to keep my voice light despite the weight on my shoulders. The repetitive motion of picking up chairs and organizing the hall brings me a strange sense of comfort. "Thank you for the offer, but it won't be necessary. I'm used to this." Asher remains by my side, silent yet present, which surprises me. He doesn't seem to mind taking on the humble task of gathering chairs alongside someone like me, a simple worker with no ties to royalty. While I carry 2 chairs at a time, I notice his strength as he stacks chairs on each arm with ease. Together, we walk through the hall, our steps synchronized, toward the growing tower of chairs I've been building in the corner. "Well, maybe you can help me," I comment playfully. Asher responds with a deep, hearty laugh, the kind that comes from within, genuine, and it immediately brings a smile to my face. It would be an honor, Miss Aria, he says, the formality in his words softened by the warmth in his voice. His presence is comforting, almost soothing, something I haven't felt in a long time. Aria. Just call me Aria. The shyness in my voice emerges before I can stop it. I have not a trace of royalty in me, I add, trying to deflect attention from the growing intimacy between us. Asher smirks faintly, a smile that brings an unexpected lightness to his otherwise serious demeanor. I disagree, but I will obey, miss. I mean Aria, he replies with a mix of respect and playfulness that warms my heart just a little more. As we organize the hall, we chat about trivial things, small details of daily life that, for a brief moment, make me forget the worries and uncertainties that haunt me. With each exchange of words, I feel an unexpected connection growing between us, a bond that is both strange and comforting. For this short period, I allow myself to feel joy in the company of this man who, until now, was a complete stranger. When we finish tidying the hall and head toward the dressing room where I changed, I can't help but ask why he's still here. But what are you still doing here? Hasn't King Caelum already left? The curiosity in my voice is genuine. Yes, he left a long time ago. I just stayed because... Asher lets the sentence trail off, shrugging casually, but the gesture carries deeper meaning, as if he's avoiding revealing something. The lack of conclusion in his words makes me laugh. Not because it's funny, but because of the way he leaves the mystery hanging in the air, unhurried to clarify his intentions. Still, the lightness of the moment is welcome, a reprieve from the tension that usually dominates my days. Reaching the building's exit, silence wraps around us, creating a reflective space that almost feels tangible. For a few seconds, neither of us speaks, as if we're both contemplating what the night still holds. Would you like a ride home? It's past midnight, Asher offers, and I'm surprised by his kindness. My mind is still stuck on the shame of what he witnessed in the office. The kiss with Caelum, which now haunts me like a ghost I can't shake off. The memory of that moment makes me hesitate, but I know I need to keep some distance. No, thank you. I'd rather take the bus home. It's a quick trip, I say gently but with a firmness in my voice, making it clear that, despite the sympathy I feel for him, I prefer the solitude of the journey back. Asher doesn't insist, respecting my decision, and soon bids me farewell, heading toward the parking lot. I watch him for a moment, feeling a strange mixture of gratitude and sadness for this unexpected connection that is already coming to an end. I take a deep breath and start walking toward the bus stop, which isn't far from here. As I walk, I feel that disturbing sensation again, that I'm being watched. My heart races, and my eyes scan the shadows around me, searching for any sign of movement. But the street is empty, deserted, as if the whole world is asleep, and I'm the only living soul in this darkness. I'm just a few steps from the bus stop when the sudden sound of an engine breaks the silence. A black van appears out of nowhere, stopping abruptly at the curb, nearly hitting me. The shock freezes me in place, panic coursing through my veins. Before I can react, the van's door slides open, and two hooded figures emerge, moving with a speed that leaves no room for defense. They grab me forcefully, and the last thing I see before being dragged into the van is the night's darkness closing in around me, like a predator finally catching its prey. If you enjoyed it, share, comment, and like. If you want to read the book, link in the description.